Welcome to Camp, Scary and Squee, a podcast that tests my theory that every horror movie exists on a scale of divine camp to pure terror. I'm your host Damien, and each week I'm joined by a guest who brings a horror movie for discussion, dissection and classification on the Camp, Scary scale. My fabulous guest this week describes her perfect horror film as having a strong plot, preferably with a twist, beautiful sets and costumes, and a thoughtful soundtrack. Welcome, Ellen. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm super
so exciting to talk about this today.
Oh, yes.
To get us started, a little bit of an icebreaker. What has been haunting you this week?
This week, among many things, impending unemployment. I've got about a month left on my contract, and I'm just looking at that job market going, yeah, cool, good.
Bloody COVID, it's ruining everything.
Yep.
I feel like...
So that's a bit spooky.
Yeah, well, anyone...
My fun fact, my contract ends right before Halloween, so... Yeah.
So you'll be celebrating Halloween extra hard to distract from that.
If I get something else, I'll be celebrating Halloween in like the fun way, but yeah, could be just in...
Anyone listening who works in publishing, particularly audio publishing?
Any publishing, really.
Publishing, give Ellen a call.
Please.
Pretty amazing person.
Why, thank you.
Well, and to give you the honours this week, can you tell us what film you have brought for discussion?
I'm so excited. So today we're going to be talking about The Addams Family, the 1991 film, the first one, which obviously there was that beautiful sequel as well, The Addams Family Values, but we're just going to be talking about that first one.
Yes, and some quick stats. So as you said, released in 1991, written by Carolyn Thompson, who people would probably know for her work on Edward Scissorhands, and Larry Wilson for his work on Beetlejuice. So a real sort of theme, like you can kind of see where the writing has come from. And directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who, from my childhood, Men in Black and Wild Wild West to...
Men in Black 1, 2 and 3, to all of them. And I feel like even there's a bit of a theme. You can kind of see that, I don't know, just the fun that happens on screen, the kind of the antics. I'm like, I can see that all together.
Absolutely. And the music, which is so important for this one, is by Mark Shaman, who many would know from Sister Act and the Broadway adaptation of Hairspray, like some real classics that, the music in this is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fun as well. I think it really adds to, obviously in any movie it's going to add to the atmosphere, but this one really helps create the atmosphere, I think, and create the campness, really.
And so top billing goes to Angelica Houston. Oh my God.
Queen.
Raul Julia, Christopher Lloyd, Christina Ricci, Jimmy Workman, and Dana Ivey, who is one of those people who you might not know her, except you will absolutely know her the second you see her.
Yeah, as soon as you see her, you go, oh, it's her, she's in everything. Like,
she's masterful. The film grossed $191 million on a $30 million budget, which is great. Like really good, good performance in the box offices, which is something great for something that has really got a cult status, because you don't always have that correlation.
That's so true.
And IMDb. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say it was also did really well because they were quite worried about it. Like it had a bit of a troubled production.
It's so funny. Like so many of the particularly things that fall on the campy end of this scale, they often have troubled production. And
really,
it's something that has come up a few times. Where it was a notoriously troubled production, or they had the production company pulled out and they had to find a new company for the distribution,
or distribution, or a new I think even just getting a director for this one was a bit tricky. Like there was lots of stuff going on in the background, which watching it, you wouldn't really know. Like there's a few things where you're like, oh, it was a bit weird, but also it was just a bit of a silly movie, so you don't really think about it. But to do so well in the box office when obviously all of the companies that were part of producing it were pretty stressed about it. Everyone loves the Addams Family.
Oh, it's so good. And before we get stuck into it, IMDb describes this as con artists plan to fleece an eccentric family using an accomplice who claims to be their long lost uncle. And a bit of a spoiler warning, because if you haven't seen this, stop what you're doing and go and watch The Addams Family.
Yeah,
because
come on.
it's so good. But we will be talking about this very, very soon. So in my opinion, horror is a really broad church, and it's we get introduced to it at lots and lots of different ages. And as children, you kind of see horror in this, you think Scooby-Doo, you think these things that are funny, and you see a real cross between horror and comedy. And I'm really interested to know about your relationship with this genre and why you chose The Addams Family.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't really go too hard on the opposite end of the scale, on the quite terrifying end of the scale. So my relationship with most sort of horror and spooky movies is I do like the ones that are, either very pretty or quite funny. And particularly with The Addams Family, I think I grew up watching the show as well. Like, I don't really remember it, but I watched it quite young. And I always had quite an affinity with Wednesday, just because just so funny. And, my mum always used to refer to me as her little Wednesday because I had sort of long dark plaits and quite a cranky little face. So I was
such a great description, a cranky little face.
So I've always just sort of, just always been drawn to the family, and just the fact that they kind of, as I got older, I realized part of the reason I really like them is they turn all of those like traditional, it's almost like the Brady Bunch turned on its head. You know what I mean? Like, they sort of take all of those traditional family tropes that you see on TV and in movies, and they flip them around. So, Morticia and Gomez actually love each other and like want to jump each other's bones all the time. And Wednesday's really feminist and quite aggressive, and it's awesome. And so I just love them as a group of characters.
Well, it is so funny in that the kind of one of the, we should probably we can probably start talking about the film. It's that for me, like, I really connected. This film came out in 1991. I was a very young child, and
yes, I didn't see it for a few years later. I was a baby when this came out.
I reckon it might have been a few years later that I first saw it as well. And it's that thing of like, as someone who was a bit of a misfit kid, it really captured so well, and particularly in that brief opening. So I've got these carol singers, and they're joyous, and they're singing this song out front of the... They're
singing Carol of the Bells, which is sort of a classic, almost like a horror movie classic, really. But they're singing it really beautifully and happily and smiling.
And we pan up to this family who are kind of looking down in disdain as they tip forward the boiling cauldron.
Yeah.
And it cuts away before it, you don't...
Yeah, before you find out what happens.
Because it's a kid's movie.
Gruesome,
and so it's implied. But it's just this lovely, I watch that and I just think, as silly as it sounds, I really identify with them in that moment as this group that are like, no, we don't want to fit in with you. We want to be different. We embrace our difference.
We embrace what makes us different. And I guess it's like what they said about their family creed. What do they say? We gladly feast on those who would subdue us.
Yes, I had it written down from that scene.
So fiery. But it's also, I don't know, I feel like it's constantly relevant. It's constantly relevant to sort of to say, no, we just want to be ourselves and like what we like. And sure, the world's going to come in and tell us that we're weird, and we're going to go, yep, we are.
Yeah, and it acts as this beacon for every weird kid in the world, just to be like, well, maybe I can be that weird.
Yeah, maybe it's okay that I don't like what everyone else likes, or if the scene, and we're sort of jumping ahead, but the scene where they talk about Wednesday's heroes.
Yes.
And again, coming back to just my absolute adoration for Wednesday, but and sort of coming back to her being quite a feminist icon in some ways, that her idol was a witch who got burned at the stake, whereas all the other kids are like the president, and it's kind of like both of them are fine, but that's the point, both of them are fine.
Yeah, that scene is so great as well, because the teacher's like, I'm very concerned, and the parents are like, she's very proud, this was her great aunt, and she's very proud of her heritage. And
yeah, exactly.
One of the things that we get right from the get-go, so they have that that opening scene with the carolers and the second, the cauldron
Sort of
tips,
opening to the story.
we shift right into this iconic soundtrack like that. And because the soundtrack is something that's so big to you, like that film score is important. This one, I think it so perfectly captures not just the family. I often feel like Morticia is who the soundtrack is for in a lot of ways.
I agree. And it's sort of like everyone else kind of rotates around Morticia being the center of the character, of the film, I think.
Which is the matriarch of the family, but I think also they put her forward as this person who is not showy, but always very observant and aware. And
yes, and she's dark, but she's also kind. Like she's kind of got the full spectrum of the family, I think, in one character.
Yeah,
and I agree. Like the soundtrack, the clicks, just the sort of the melody in that iconic theme. I feel like it kind of reflects Morticia a bit. I totally see that.
It's what happens in the beginning is we get some very quick beats to establish what's going on and what the story is. And so in that sort of, it's within like the first 5 minutes, we have Gomez talking to Thing about his brother who's been missing for 25 years. Wednesday's a complete badass, like she's shooting her brother an apple in her brother's mouth.
Yeah, they do not muck around being like, here's the family, here's what you want.
Quit being a baby.
Yeah,
she's so
I know what I'm doing.
Christina Ricci, like
she's 10.
She's 10 and she's acting circles. Like this whole film, like really, it's her and it's Angelica Houston, and they just
absolutely.
Oh, like I get chills.
Anytime they're on screen, it's just them.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah, just star power. My notes for that opening of Morticia lying in the bed, like stunningly beautiful. And I've just got in all caps, everything. She is just, like, and it's this, as you were saying, that kind of how much they embrace that darkness. She wakes up and he goes, "Unhappy, darling," and she smiles and says, "Yes, completely." It's just, it's so good.
And I love the way, I do love the way that they kind of on the nose flip everything on its head, but it somehow still works. It doesn't come across as too on the nose. Like it's just the fun and it's the silliness of it. And I love the way they do that opening because I think they just really understood the audience. They knew what the audience wanted. We wanted to see all of the characters. We wanted to be introduced to, here are the things that you know and love. There's Thing, who is great. Like every montage with Thing is just brilliant and hilarious. I was reading a really interesting thing about how they had to film all of that. Like that was probably half the production budget, them filming Thing.
Well, and so something interesting is, if you think through film history, the person who kind of, the father of special effects is a man called Georges Méliès, who I'm trying to think, it was so long ago, it was pre-World War II, he did these special effect films, and it'd be he'd like lay a film over one piece of film over another one, so someone's head would get pulled off and the head would be like talking, and they were often silent films. He famously did Trip to the Moon, which is that iconic poster of the moon with an angry face with a rocket in its eye.
With the rocket in it, yeah.
And I look at Thing and you see kind of the influences of how Méliès kind of took these like bits of film and put them over other bits of film to create special effects, and that it's kind of carried forward to today.
And it's kind of, that little echo of, just like classic filmmaking, I guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like it gives it, I mean, it's 1991, so it has some retro elements, but it gives it this almost like timeless retro.
It's an effective way of doing an effect that there are elements where you're like, if it was done today, it would look so, but it still looks good. Like
it looks good.
I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, that's terrible." It's like, oh no,
that's CGI. Yeah, no,
and because it wasn't CGI, it was a real hand that they
It's one of those things that I just don't think. I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen the animated version that came out last year of the Addams Family, but I don't feel like I'll get the same character from having an animated hand crawl around, because there's nothing particularly special about that. Like they really had to go all out for this
I
human
should have
hand
looked up
falling
his
down.
name, but the actor who plays Thing is credited. And because it's
Yeah.
that hand is acting. Like there is so much
Absolutely.
emotion in that hand. But before
theatre.
we move on from that scene with in the bedroom with Morticia and Gomez, I feel like we have to acknowledge that while this is a children's movie, they really embrace their kink.
Oh yeah.
Like in a way that I wonder, like, were there like, you know, vanilla couples in the world who would watch this with their children and think, maybe we should get some handcuffs and
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe you should try eyeliner. I'm not sure. You know,
try some eyeliner. But there's that amazing, you know, last night you were unhinged. You're an animal. What was it? You frightened me.
frightened me.
Do it again. Oh, it's so good. And like,
So, and there's one later as well where he's like taking her out of a torture device. And,
yes, the leather.
her, oh, handcuffs, red hot pokers, and she's like, later, darling.
It's so good. And, you know, I don't know if we could make a movie for like that age group now that would kind of.
That would, and because they did it in a very, I wouldn't say like particularly clever way, but they did it in a way that would go over the kids' heads. You know,
Yeah,
like,
the kids are just like, adults are weird.
Yeah, adults are just saying funny, dark things. Like, you know, the whole joke is that they're spooky.
Yeah.
But for adults, you'd be sitting there going, wait, what?
Block your ears, kids. Oh, God.
Yeah, but, you know, if you didn't say anything, the kids wouldn't have any idea. But, yeah, I thought it was, I loved that. Like, and it's right at the beginning, so you're immediately sort of given that dynamic between
and just how passionate they are about each other. Like, you know, they're into each other. This isn't a loveless marriage that died years ago, unlike Tully and his wife Margaret, who we're about to meet. It's that, I mean, I feel like we'll mostly just talk about Angelica Houston
absolutely
being incredible. So she's cutting the heads off roses, and it's incredible.
Even that little, like, it's a tiny little throwaway scene almost, and she's sitting there snipping these beautiful heads off these roses and putting the stems back in the vase. And I just, even that, I was just like, God.
Well, she looks at it with such admiration and then just snip and puts very graciously puts the thorny stem in the vase. but Tully's fighting with the gate because the gate, of course, is alive.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And I love that these people who engage with the Addams family have all accepted the kind of supernatural quirks of this house that they deal with.
Yeah, and like they don't necessarily like it, but they're all just, you know, they don't really question it at the same time. They're just sort of like, this is just something we deal with the Addamses. And like, even, I mean, I guess the character who doesn't really want to deal with it is the neighbor with the broken windows and the golf balls. Yes. But again, he kind of just, you know, he deals with it just because now you're a moron and carries on.
But also, this is a sign of some like well thought out writing in that they do a lot in this, but they don't do too much. So that scene with the judge has a purpose because, you know, the judge wants, like, it gives him a motivation to rule against the family later. Like,
exactly. And actually they do that with a lot of different things. Like, as we'll go through the story, but there's quite a few things where at first I was like, God, this is just like fun goofiness. And then by the end I was like, oh, that actually,
there was a payoff. Oh, right.
That really tied the whole thing together. Yeah.
Well, I look at the writers and their other credits, and they're films that often do that. And there's a real skill to going, oh, we're going to do heaps in this, but nothing's wasted.
Yeah, everything has a purpose, and even though it seems at first that it's quite extra and just a little, you know, you're watching it being like, really? Like, did we need this? But by the end you're going, oh yeah, no, we did.
Dana Ivey as Margaret, I feel like it's worth saying.
Fantastic.
One of the things I noticed in her characterization was as they're walking up the driveway, she's got this quite thick accent. She's like, why did I even marry you? And then when she walks in, I'm here to talk to Mrs. Adams. Like, and you just,
I didn't even pick that up. How?
It so stood out to me. I thought, I don't know if it was her, if it was the direction, but just like something little that I just went.
She's really like her character is really that one who when they're in society, they have a face that they show. And then, obviously in her unhappy marriage, she drops that. And I wonder, did you notice by the end, had she sort of become herself again, or was she still?
Yeah, I think she'd become herself more by the end. I feel like it wasn't something that was carried through the entire film, that she was like changing her accent. But it was just a nice little touch at the start.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm here for the charity auction.
Really putting on that, like lawyer's wife kind of. Yeah.
But so Tully is very much the bumbling and fumbling lawyer. We find out that the family is his last remaining client. There's a sword fight, which
the best
was fun. Like, it was lovely. He's kind of like, oh God, I have to do this every time.
But he also, I quite enjoyed that he sort of just went into it.
Yeah, he was on board.
It made me laugh because obviously they're his last client. He kind of has to do whatever they want. And of course, his last client is the one that would expect him to have, a sword fight in their office before he talks about.
Before they talk about old business, not new business.
Yes.
This is old business.
Old business, not new business. Oh God.
But you can see that he's trying to convince Gomez to shift some money to an offshore account in his name, saying it's for tax purposes, but we've sort of established that he's having some money troubles. Yeah,
and that he's a little bit dodgy, at least.
And he's trying to work out where the money is kept, and meanwhile, Margaret is in the grandmother's. Is it her is it her bedroom or spell room? It's something.
I don't think we ever really find out.
It's a junk room.
Yeah, she's. I mean, I'm sure there's many rooms in that house. We're in one of Grandma's rooms, and is that when they're going through the armoire?
Yes, Uncle Knick-Knack's summer wardrobe, Uncle Knick-Knack's winter wardrobe, Uncle Knick-Knack. I
remember Margaret sitting there looking shocked. I'm like, come on, Margaret, surely you've seen this all before.
But again, we get this kind of, it's almost a MacGuffin. They find the thing for the charity auction, which is this finger trap. And it's, again, something that's not just there for nothing, because we'll get to it later, that
absolutely
it becomes this key part in the plot. But it's this beautiful, ornate finger trap that Margaret immediately traps her fingers in and can't get them out.
Were you watching it as the audience just being there, Margaret, don't.
No. It's quite funny. At work, we did like a kind of team building day, and there was a finger trap that we all got, those paper ones, and they shared it around, and immediately everyone got their fingers stuck.
You see it, you just can't help yourself.
And you're just watching the panic on everyone's eyes as the thing's continuing, the person at the front still talking, and everyone's just like, oh shit, oh no.
This is happening, I've done it.
A whole room of people going through that same instinct to like, oh yeah, I just went like, oh no, I'm trapped.
Oh no. It really is So I suppose, the one in the movie is obviously exquisite, so it would probably be even more enticing than a paper.
It looked like it hurt.
It kind
sharp
of
teeth.
Yeah. Of course it did. It's the Addams Family. If it didn't have teeth, you'd be worried. But
Tully doesn't get what he wants, which was his money, because that's new business.
Although I did like in that scene with Tully that you also get to know a bit more about Gomez outside of Morticia, in that he's quite trusting. While he is, a little crazy, he's very sweet, and he trusts Tully, and he just kind of doesn't really worry too much about what Tully's doing. He's not suspicious at all.
No.
And he's kind of naive. Like, he's like as adult as he is with Morticia, he's kind of like a sweet, naive person outside of that.
Well, and it goes back to that thing that Morticia seems to be the person who's observant and very much a counterbalance to him. He's very impulsive and celebratory, and he wants to see the best in everyone. And it's not that she doesn't, but she takes her time. And I think that's been a really important part of what drives this plot forward.
Absolutely. And there's a few scenes later where that becomes very, even just key in creating little funny one-liners, but key in the plot as well.
there are a few things that are happening throughout this period. So we know that there's a seance coming, and Margaret and Tully are invited. But when Tully gets back to his office, his assistant's been sent home, and the loan shark, Abigail, which, do you know what I love? I love that the loan shark is kind of an unassuming older woman.
Yes. Again, like the characterization in this and the writing is just, it's so good. It turns a lot of things on their head. And yeah, so Abigail is, yeah, she just kind of is very ordinary looking. Turns out she's quite terrifying and a con woman.
And she's like, and we really like, even though it's quite short, you meet her, you meet her son, Gordon, and you very quickly see that they want the big payday so they don't have to be these small time loan sharks anymore, and they kind of want to get away from it all. And as Gordon is threatening Tully sort of notices that Gordon looks a lot like
a portrait of Fester that he saw at the house earlier that day.
That clearly wig.
Yes, the spectacular hair. Oh wow. But imagine going through life having those bags all the time.
Oh my
Poor Gordon.
God, I know. Some intense makeup.
Oh yeah.
For who we all know as Doc from Back to the Future.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, I wondered if. I mean, obviously they went hard in just making him into that character, but I did wonder if they sort of went extra hard because he was so well known.
Yeah, well,
to associate him with.
And it was that thing. Even watching it this time, I didn't immediately click who it was. I was like, that voice sounds familiar, but I don't recognize him.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I knew, I went, I see it. But
as soon as you see it with the nose, and sometimes he has those expressions that he does, particularly with his eyes. He's very animated in his face. And yeah, I was exactly the same after probably like because he had the hair and everything in the first scene, I wasn't really paying that close attention. But I think it was once he got rid of the hair and you could more clearly focus on his face, I sort of went, oh yeah, there's Doc. I see him.
Yeah.
But but I also, it was interesting, he's quite a tall man. So the whole filming to be Fester and Gordon, he was hunched over for the filmings, which I thought that was also clever in a way because, again, you don't immediately recognise him because, Doc and some of the other characters that he plays, he's obviously not hunched over or in a big overcoat or anything.
That actually makes a lot of sense because one of the things I thought looking at him was like he just doesn't seem to have the same stature. Like he still had this great presence, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah, and he hobbles around, which is perfect for Fester, but it was because also he was kind of bent over and kind of literally hobbling around the whole time.
It can't have been a fun part of that particular role, but
uncomfortable.
It must have helped him get into character because Fester was, constantly kind of plagued as part of his character. And
yes, and just certainly awkward. Yeah.
What we get next is the seance, which I really enjoyed.
The seance. God, that's good.
I loved that Lurch was live playing the organ. Like, so as things happened, he clearly very talented, was just switching between whatever he needed. If the tension's building, I'll build the tension.
Yeah.
Very talented man, Lurch. Man.
Absolutely. And I feel like, he's done this before, clearly, but yeah, it's just funny, especially because, Lurch doesn't talk. No. But he's a very talented musician.
But we get Grandmama is conducting the seance, calling to Fester. There is a knock. And she demands that he knocks again. There is another knock and Thing is out. He's like on his way to the door. He's going to open it. There's knock. Clearly there's someone there. We follow him. And again, like this great kind of characterization of this.
Absolutely.
This hand. And he opens the door and there's Gordon as Uncle Fester.
As Fester.
And we also get to meet Abigail as Dr. Pinderschloss.
That's right. I was going to say, what was her name? She had some amazing doctor name.
Yeah, well, and I was like, I wonder if that means something. Schloss means castle, but Pinder didn't really mean anything. So
maybe it was just something cool. I couldn't find anything about it, but
I was like, if Schloss meant castle, I was like, maybe it's like plunder castle, but it wasn't. Maybe. Unless it like Pinder is like another language again, and I was not like.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look this up because yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I feel like you're probably on the right track there, where it means, to rob someone or some kind of con woman, basically.
Uh, one of the things I enjoyed here is Wednesday and her mother are very similar in that they're observant, and it's almost like Morticia's Wednesday with a lot of experience because she observes and holds back. Well, Wednesday, who loves the Bermuda Triangle, had a lot of questions
and a lot to say about it. Yes,
it was challenging Fester and developing that tension to show that he was going to view her as a problem and that she was suspicious of him, which was really good to see.
And I really liked that you also you were sort of you were thinking, oh, is Morticia suspicious? You didn't know, and I quite like that. Even as the audience, you don't really understand Morticia half the time.
Yeah,
because there's the scene where Fester's come in and he's unpacking and she's going through his things and sort of she's like, a crowbar, and then I can't remember what the next thing is.
It was cyanide, and she goes, as if we'd run out.
But the whole time as the audience, you're like, is she suspicious? And he's obviously stressing that she's suspicious because he doesn't understand the Addams family. That's part of the fun, is that he is one of the few characters in the whole movie who's never experienced the Addams family before. So he's kind of learning along with the audience, or probably learning even harder than the audience because the audience kind of knows the Addams family. So going, as if we'd run out, and then everyone kind of relaxes. But as an audience, you're still sitting there being like, but she's so observant. Is she suspicious too, or is it just Wednesday who's pushing this? I don't believe you.
Yeah. Oh, it's sort of, I would be so interested to sort of rewatch again with that in mind and like watch her more closely, because Angelica Houston is such a phenomenal actor as well. Like
I almost don't think you could know. I think even if you rewatched it, I think, because I was sort of thinking it in both minds, and I personally settled on she really wanted him to be Fester for Gomez's sake.
Yeah.
And she sort of didn't really have any reason to believe that he wouldn't be at that point. They'd just done the seance. So him coming in then kind of fits in with everything. And so I think she didn't necessarily buy into it straight away, but she wasn't actively suspicious the same way Wednesday was. That's what I settled on. But
yeah,
who knows?
I guess like the way that we sort of move this forward now is that there's some character development. Thing comes into Fester's bedroom and they hear him screaming and they're like, oh, it's so good to have him back.
You sort of get back into, because we've had lots of plot development at this point, and now you sort of get back into just like enjoying the characters and their silliness and their darkness. And I did like one of my favorite things about this movie as a whole was that really the whole Fester coming back and that plot was almost like a loose excuse just to have fun with the characters and really explore who they are for an audience who's obviously who loves them. Like, I don't think many people are going to that movie having no idea what the Addams family is.
Well, and it's one of those things that they are really embedded in, certainly in our culture in Australia. Like everyone in my family, I have lots of older brothers and sisters, and they all have a bit of a relationship with this family. I guess if you go a bit older, maybe it shifts to the Munsters, which... Yeah,
well, because the Munsters and the Addams Family TV shows were on at the same time, and the Munsters was apparently quite a bit more popular for whatever reason. Maybe it was just a bit more higher budget, or it was just a bit funnier.
Well, what I find funny is that the Addams Family had this great kind of resurgence, but the Munsters never really did.
Munsters never did. It was almost, I feel like if it happened today, like say the Addams Family, the first resurgence happened today, surely the Munsters would jump straight on it. It would be like a Marvel versus DC kind of situation.
Oh my God. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Addams, the Munsters.
The Munsters Cinematic Universe. I would watch it. Make it happen.
I wonder what Munsters Endgame would be about.
What would the gauntlet be like?
Yes, what's their MacGuffin?
Well, Thing could be the gauntlet. He'd be pretty cool, snapping his fingers.
Yeah, love it.
I would fit, actually. 2 snaps.
Brilliant. I love it. Right, we need to... Who do we write to?
Excuse me, Disney. We have ideas.
We have so many ideas. what we get, and I guess it's important because it again plays down in the future that Gomez the next day wants to take Fester to the vault. So Fester's plan is to go searching for this vault,
and he gets it handed to him on a silver platter.
Takes him straight there. But we go into this this room, this little sort of chamber, or like kind of an antechamber, full of chains that you can pull on. And Gomez, not even looking, just reaches up, pulls down on one, and they drop onto a slide. And you keep that silliness as they like go through.
Oh, the slide scene that goes for just a little bit too long.
Goes for so long. And at the very end, they come out, and you're like, that slide is like a meter long.
I was thinking that. I think within the first like maybe 3 cuts of it, I was like, this is just the same slide with different shots of you going down it.
They've made them go down this thing 400 times.
It's probably a whole day of filming just to get this. Like, I mean, to be fair, yeah, it goes for like 3 solid minutes of them going down the slide. But yeah, the slide really is maybe 2 meters long.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so good. And when they pop out, it's just like,
yep, it's just done.
But okay, it takes us through this, there's there's the gondola where he sings and plays the music.
Amazing. It's getting really like, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory vibes. I was waiting for them to go into like a psychedelic scene in that, but they didn't.
No,
not the gondola.
They could have.
They could have lent harder in there, but that's fine.
And then Fester, fixing a drink, picks up a bottle and discovers the actual vault as this bar turns around. He sees it all, and then it turns back while Gomez is kind of hunting through a box for something and attacking something in the box that's going to attack him.
Again, that beautiful writing where just there's no scene wasted. There's never an opportunity wasted to kind of characterize a little harder or kind of do something a little bit funny, but that still adds something that you haven't seen before. Like we haven't really seen him attacking something miscellaneous in a box, but it makes it so much more interesting than Fester just discovering the vault accidentally.
Yeah.
Because you've also got that tension of like, is Gomez going to know that he's just seen the vault? And
all of this is to kind of put doubt in Gomez's mind as well, because like when he gets to the vault and he's like 2 to the left, 10 to the right, and Fester, I can't remember what number he says. He goes 11, 2, 10, 11, eyes, fingers, toes. It's so good.
So beautiful. And then, oh my gosh, even in that scene, everything in that scene is just great. But the scotch glass or the whiskey glasses that are like the size of fish bowls?
Yes.
That, for whatever reason, just really I was just like, this is great. I want those.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Nothing like a whiskey out of a fish bowl.
So, and that's the scene where you start getting, more of that questioning. So there's the eyes, fingers, toes thing. And then, they're sitting there, they're reminiscing, they're watching old family movies. And that's where Gomez really starts going, you really don't remember iconic things from our childhood.
Yeah. And it's, I guess what's quite good about this is you get to see him in that moment kind of paste over. He's just plastering over every crack. He can just quickly put some plaster over it to, really stay with his fantasy that his brother is back. But
you can also see it starting to crumble in the back of his mind. Even they're watching the video and he's going, it was my first, and Fester goes, cigar?
He's been smoking
since I was 5. Mother insisted.
Yes, that's it.
And again, beautiful, just little adding to that family of weirdos. But yeah, like and it was one of those things that you can kind of understand where Gomez is coming from, because, he knows that his brother's been through something, he's been through a big thing in the Bermuda Triangle. So yeah, he's just, like you said, he's trying to plaster over the cracks going, oh, it's okay. He doesn't remember because of this event. And all I have to do is remind him. But it kind of starts building and you can see it sort of falling apart in the back of his head going, hang on. Some things aren't adding up here.
Well, and I guess this comes to a head through the auction. So they go to the auction for charity. I absolutely love this, that Morticia's just bidding against herself. Like, it's the thing that they donated to it.
Give a shit. She's so good.
But also, I think this is like a point of kindness. Like, she gave them something, and her intention was, I'm giving it to you so I can buy it back and give you money for this charity. For widows and orphans, we need more.
We need more of them.
Well, and they said, oh, I remember the auction. They say that they're also raising money for the elderly and deranged, is it, or something like that? And Morticia looks at Grandmama and smiles, and Grandmama kind of nods like, "Thank you," because
Yes.
she's elderly and deranged.
It is me.
But yeah, she's bidding on it. Gomez is kissing her hand and like,
Oh, yeah, we get some more like just gold sort of Gomez and Morticia. And, you know, there's that scene, it sort of pans away from them to the audience just watching them. And they're obviously
she's like 20,000, 50,000.
And then they're just kind of making out. You don't really know what they're doing, but the rest of the crowd at the auction just kind of like, what do we do? What's going on over there? But it's just for a second, and then it kind of gets back into it. But oh gosh, I remember Morticia.
Yeah. And then in the car, Fester has the finger trap, gets his fingers stuck, and he doesn't know how to get them out. And this is the point of realization. And again, Morticia so knowingly is like, just shows him how to do it and doesn't say anything, but we see...
It sort of just allows things to happen around her. She goes, oh, you just do this, remember? And you sort of see Gomez, all the plasters coming off. He's going, no, can't compute this.
Yeah.
I had to teach him to eat with his feet as a child. That was...
Well, the train scene is beautiful.
Yes.
While this was made after it, you know how people talk about the sparkle motion dance scene in Donnie Darko and how incredible it is to have this, like, these kids dancing, and somehow it like creates all this tension as Donnie is burning down the house to reveal that this guy has kitty porn. This, I think,
the way they sort of play that, like
as iconic as that. Like the family are all sitting there talking about the trains and like going through the covered bridge.
A good, happy thing.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Taking the turn or whatever they say. And
cutting between them and Gomez. And it's like they're having a breakdown as he plays with trains.
Which for me, especially, I found it really funny because like we know generally, you know, train sets are fun and cute. But do you know who was quite famously very into trains and loved train sets was Walt Disney.
Really?
He really loved trains. It's part of the reason that a lot of the theme parks have lots of like trains and other vehicles throughout them. He really liked sort of motions of transport, but loved his train sets, had a little like train set in his backyard, I think. And so for me watching that as well, just being like they're taking like one of the most iconic, happy, cute things, and it's his signal for having quite a bad mental breakdown.
Yeah. He's processing it in his mind. That's where you get, they had to teach him to eat with his feet. And we watch the family huddled on the bed, you know, just like listening.
Are they in the same room?
Yeah, they're all in the same room. That like okay, Morticia has the two children huddled against her as they like, you know,
they watch father.
Well, the melancholy, like they're listening. Oh, he's doing this now. It's going past this station. He's using the diesel locomotive, and it's their horror. Like it's their It's
what scares the Addams. Like
it's model trains. That's what scares.
It's model trains, leisurely activities. But I was wondering then. I was sort of like, you know, they're talking about it like he's done this before. And I'm like, maybe this is how we reacted when Fester first disappeared. You know, did he come and play with his train set? And they all just sat there going, oh, Dad's really sad.
Fester uses this time to try and break into the vault. And we get a similar to the slide. Like he pulls the wrong chain and gets sucked into some kind of sewer. And while the train thing is happening, Morticia sees him go through just a pipe of water, like a clear pipe of water that's in that room. He like goes through holding onto the chain and screaming.
And again, Morticia's just like, okay.
Well, when he is spat out at this kind of refuse exit in the house from the house, she's standing there waiting for him. And she uses it as an opportunity to kind of talk to him about the history of the family to help explain why they are the way they are, and that's where we get their family
amazing
motto.
creed.
We gladly feast on those who subdue us, which is, and she's clearly very proud. She talks about the way that their family died and how each death is kind of this badge of honor for them.
Absolutely. And again, you sort of get that mystery of Morticia. Is she threatening him or is she trying to educate him? And it's hard.
We still don't know.
We still don't know because she is generally just a bit threatening. That's the whole thing. The Addams family, they're a bit spooky, but Fess is obviously feeling threatened and a bit scared. But I was sort of watching it being like, I think she's genuinely just she's quite proud of her family and wants to talk about it with him.
Yeah.
Again, because I think she wants Gomez to be happy. So she's sort of like, come on, Festa, let's go and like try to jog your memory of the family or who knows. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm settling on, I think Morticia just kind of wanted to help. I don't think she was necessarily overly suspicious.
I like to think she was suspicious, particularly just around. I feel like she was using this as another way to kind of collect information.
Right.
And just, being observant and never quite giving away her, like, where she's coming from.
Never. Yeah. I guess that probably ties into the, she's Wednesday with more experience. She doesn't give the game away, but she just constantly collects notes, mental notes, sort of going, okay, he doesn't know the family creed, or he doesn't remember who these graves are for when they're walking through it. But it's interesting. I feel like after that, maybe not immediately after that, but you do see more of Festa come back. He starts after this. He starts sort of acting more Addams-ish.
Part of that, I wonder, is for like part of this story and like part of the Gordon, because there is a twist at the end, but part of the Gordon, when at the end he sort of helps them before we know. It's like, is this the first time he's ever felt like he belonged? Because he is like them. His natural state is to be this dark misfit who embraces his weirdness.
Fairly awkward, but embraces it and is naturally, quite morbid and is it, how soon after it is it where we see him, Wednesday and Pugsley are having a fight? That was one of the first moments to me where he really isn't, like, he has that Addams.
Yeah.
That Addams nature where he's sort of, haven't you ever slayed anyone before? She goes, he's only a child. That's no excuse.
Well, and it kind of, there's this overarching theme to this film that it's kind of about finding the people who accept you for you, which is what he does. And that scene's coming up because that comes up. The next scene is Dr. Pinderschloss is back. And she's kind of giving Gomez and Morticia some therapy.
Yeah, that's right. And just kind of, obviously she's like gaslighting them kind of thing
yes.
to get her own way. But
just like the dialogue they give her, like all like the lines that she has, the feelings in your brain cells, they bubble and collapse. It's so good.
She really knows how to talk to the Addams, doesn't she? She really
does.
Gets what will get through to them.
And she, she's talking to them about, love and hate. They're the same thing. They're both just strong emotions. And if you hate, therefore you love. And, bringing Gomez to this realization that it is Vesta. I hate him because I love him.
Yep, absolutely. And it kind of ties into the whole Addams thing, is that you take what would normally be a thing and you flip it on its head. Yeah. Yeah. Such clever writing throughout this whole movie.
It is really good writing. Like, it's just...
Yeah. And it kind of upsets me a lot. It didn't really get that many good reviews. Like, I feel like it's very average when it's reviewed. And, like, maybe overall as a whole film, sure. But the writing is really quite clever, particularly if you're as invested in the characters as...
Do you think part of it is people go into it expecting something? Like, I look at this film and I think every single person in this film knew what they were there for, knew the tone that they were trying to set, and they all were therefore able to deliver it. And sometimes I wonder if people go to something like this and they see a very self-aware film, like everyone in the film is self-aware, everyone is, you know, delivering this, and they go, oh, it's so self-aware, oh, I'm better than that. And it's like, well, are you though? Like, this is enjoyable.
I feel like that's part of the reason I love it. I love how self-aware it is, and that absolute perfection when it comes to the delivering the tone from every single actor who, you know, just really understood. I don't know, just how sort of backwards everything was meant to be, and maybe people just weren't ready for that.
So where were we? So Wednesday, yes. So while the therapy is happening, Wednesday and Pugsley are rehearsing for their school play, and this is where Fester is like, "What are you doing? Haven't you ever slain anyone?" And
he's only a child. He says that's no excuse. And what does he say? You have to go for a major artery, the jugular.
And oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, for me, that was a moment that clicked. I was like, hang on.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a normal person thing to say. He is an Addams.
Well, and he agrees to help them with their play and
help them make it really realistic.
Yeah, help them sort of deliver something really great. And I think one of the really good things with this is that it gives us an opportunity to sort of see him make that first real decision about where he belongs and where he wants to be.
Yep.
And
does he want to invest in the family, or does he want to invest in stealing their money?
Yeah.
You know, he's first time we see him kind of start to flip the other way, because like you said, we've just seen him try to break into the vault by himself. And like, sure, he wasn't successful, but this is completely separate from that. He's kind of gone into uncle mode.
Yeah.
Like proper uncle mode.
He feels some real affection for them. And it very quickly shifts, and he says he's not going to help them. But then we get to the night of the play. There are kids on stage singing something. I can't remember what it was, but I love that the family are all just like, ugh, this is terrible.
Yeah, they're singing some really cute song. Oh, I can't remember what it was either. But
it didn't really matter. It was
no, it was very cutesy, very typical like kids song for them to be singing. And I did love it that, yeah, you know, all the parents are sitting there smiling in the Addams Family. I'm like, God, why are we here?
When will this end? And backstage, Wednesday and Pugsley are getting ready, and Fester comes in and he goes, here you go. And they're like, you will help us? And we don't know exactly what he's helping with.
Yeah, what that means. But, you know, we get that, okay, he's really committed to being the uncle, to being affectionate and going in for the family. And then he goes and sits in the audience, which I thought was really cute too.
Yeah.
And you can see that Gomez is quite thrilled that he's there.
Well, and we just get the best play I've ever seen.
Probably my favourite scene in the movie, to be honest.
This is so good. So I think it's Shakespearean. They're like fighting on stage.
Yeah,
I probably should have looked up what it was.
Yeah, me too. Shall we look it up?
It doesn't matter. What matters
it seems like a fight from like, I don't know, King Lear or something like that. Who knows? But
what matters is that when they strike a blow,
it's realistic.
It's realistic. The arm falls off and blood starts spurting out.
And it's not just a little bit of blood.
It's like a hose.
Yeah, the entire audience, just over a period of like 3 minutes, because they keep fighting. They're like, oh, the play's not done. No, we've got to kill each other.
There's more cuts and more blood from more places.
There's a throat at one point, which we all know, like, you know, throat's quite a lot of blood. And yeah, very realistic by the end. You just, again, it all comes back. It all comes back around. And you just see the audience just slowly being covered in, and obviously it's red paint, and I quite liked that it was very obviously fake.
Yeah, it was like bright and
yeah.
Well, again, it's a children's movie, so like they had to kind of
exactly
take the edge off a bit.
It's them. They're not really bleeding, and everyone knows they're not really bleeding. There's no pretend, but it just went that little step darker where everyone's slowly being covered in it in the front row. And they're all going, oh, God, oh, my God. And Wednesday's just fully committed character. And
like Christina Ricci, just even in this thing where she's doing like, I'm a kid, act like doing a serious play. And so it's like a bit over the top. So good. Like she just kills it.
Yeah. And yeah, just her commitment to the drama. But again, she's perfect. She doesn't overdo the drama.
No.
She's very, very serious about her dying in the play. And they're both very proud of their performance that they're putting on, and the parents are just thrilled. And
it has to be the best. Like, I think it's the best scene of this whole thing because it captures everything that we've been talking about. Like, we don't give a shit what other people think of us. We're just celebrating who we are, and this is the play we're putting on, and our family
we're passionate about what we do, and that's it. The people that we care about. It's that whole thing that if what's that saying where it's like the people who matter don't mind, and the people who don't matter will mind.
Yeah, well, it's the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter.
That's the one. Yeah. That one. So it kind of, and that really sums up the Addams, I think, because all Wednesday and Pugsley would care about is that Mum and Dad and Fester thought they did a great job.
Yeah, and so good.
They just don't care about what the audience thinks, but they're also kind of, I feel like they're obviously quite a bit younger, and they probably as children don't think so much about what other people think of them anyway. But I feel like they were really on stage being like, everyone's going to appreciate this because it's art.
Yeah. I appreciated it. If I was there, I'd be so there. I'd just be like, yes, this is great.
Killing it.
So the next thing that happens is we sort of shift to the big party.
Oh, yes, the farewell ball.
Yeah, because Fester has to go back to the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, I think I can't really remember what excuse she made, but the whole point is that he has to go back for like more therapy or something, who knows. Yeah, but
and
he has to leave.
Yeah, they were creating this opportunity. Like, they were trying to create an opportunity to be able to steal the money.
Exactly.
And this is another one, like, it's really fun and it's exciting, but there's just like a whole bunch of points that have to hit to get us to, what ends up being the kind of low point of.
Yeah, and it to get us to that real conflict point. And it, in a way, it kind of went a bit slowly for me, this part, because I feel like they definitely took the opportunity to bring in a lot of things that they'd been talking about before, like, the conjoined twins are there and kind of flirting with Fester and Gomez. And
also with Tully. Yes,
that's right. And then, of course, there's, Cousin It and Margaret, which is just the best side storyline ever.
Oh,
and and I was so thrilled to see Cousin It. Like, he's definitely one of my favorites. But I felt, because there were lots of these little side points that all sort of came together in one go. It was great, but I was also kind of like, I want the action a little faster.
Yeah.
But you get there.
Well, I guess the things that we get is Wednesday catches Gordon and Abigail.
Is it Abigail? Yeah. Shaving his head. So,
yeah,
and it was one of those things, she catches them doing something that is clearly they're faking.
Well, and they're talking about it, and she goes, I knew it. She runs and Fester chases after her. Tully, speaking to Flora and Fauna, the conjoined twins, works out that actually Fester would be the heir to the fortune if as the older brother. And so while the party's going on and they're not able to steal the money, Tully has an idea, and he goes and knocks on the judge's door, who's at the beginning of the film had golf balls flying through his window. It's all,
and obviously hates the Addams. Like, he's probably the one in the film that we see who has the most disdain for them. Most people just accept them, that they're a bit weird. I think we hear Tully call them, like, he's a moron kind of thing, but it's not really hate-filled. It's just kind of like, we put up with them, they're a bit weird, but whatever. But the judge, like, clearly has anger towards them.
Yeah. Well, Tully says, I can get rid of them for you. And what we get is, after the party, they realise Wednesday's missing. They all go out looking for her, and Fester stays behind in case she comes back. And they use that opportunity to lock the gates and lock out the family.
Basically do a switch up. Yeah, they've totally kind of fooled them, basically. Yeah. They come back and the gate is locked. And Tully, gives them all of the bad news. And then they go to a motel.
They do. Well, and then so they go
to the most uncomfortable scene. The Addams family in a cheap motel.
Before that, they do go to the judge, and the judge sort of rules against them.
Yes,
and takes
happily.
great
I loved
pleasure.
that scene. The camera's like right under his chin, basically. Like you're almost looking up his nose, and he's just there gleefully stamping the thing, going,
Yeah.
"Nope, bye."
And so this is the low point, and do you know what? It's quite funny because there's this very long setup to this low point. I'd say there's a long first act, and then the second,
It's quite short and sharp.
going from the low point to the end of the second act and into the final climax all moves very, very quickly.
Yeah. And maybe for me, maybe that's what I meant when, in terms of that ball scene, not necessarily that it went slowly, but there was a lot that had to happen in that one scene. There were a lot of points that had to hit for us to be able to get to this next act.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how they could have done it a different way to introduce all of those facts, because the whole point is that it snowballs quite quickly and they use all of the opportunities that are created in that scene, like Wednesday going missing, like they sort of they jump on opportunities as opposed to it sort of being slowly set up.
Yeah, well, and like Wednesday missing again serves a point because they need to get everyone out of the house so that they can lock them out.
Yeah, but that was just an accident. Like they didn't plan for Wednesday to go missing. So yeah, they just like Tully and Abigail kind of just jump on these like randomly presented opportunities.
Yeah. I think there are some really great standouts in the Addams Family having to live in a motel for a few days. Morticia going to the job counselor.
That's right. Oh, yes.
Where did you study? Private tutors. And your major, spells and hexes. And she writes liberal arts.
Yes. The best recruiter ever.
Yeah, but again, like really smart jokes for the parents and
yeah, definitely.
Like taking those horror elements that are presented in such a comical way here and that we get to laugh at and showing how the world interacts with these things. They just sort of go, oh, you're just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. We can fit you in a box, so basically, yeah.
I also love the Girl Scout interaction when Wednesday and Pugsley are selling lemonade. And she's like, are they real lemons? I only have real fruit.
I only, it has to be organic, real grown. Are they made from, and she makes them the deal, She's like, okay, well, I'll buy one glass. And by the way, total scam. I'll buy one glass of your 5-cent lemonade for, I don't know how much a box of Girl Scout cookies costs, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 5 cents.
But Wednesday has the best line ever. Are they made from real Girl Scouts? Just kills me. And like delivering.
And like doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah. Like just stand out. So good.
And because that girl, she comes back. She's like the child villain in the sequel. I'm quite sure it's her.
I didn't even make that link. They got
the same actress because she's in the play, right? She's like, I'll be the victim all your life, like that. Yes. That line from Addams Family Values, which is just that whole play is fantastic. But that's a different movie. But yeah, she's that girl.
Back and we're going to have to do Addams Family Values.
Yes,
clearly
next season.
Yes. Well, look, there is like a bit of a side story happening that Gordon and Abigail and Tully can't find the right chain. There's a point after they've kind of failed a few times, they're eating some lunch and she's like, we'll keep trying after lunch. And, they're
you can see the cracks are starting to form in that little alliance and Fester's obviously having some, I don't even know if he's having second thoughts at that point. He's just frustrated.
He just feels like he's only there because he's getting used. And
yeah, well, I think he's starting to realise that he has just been used this whole time and they don't actually care about him. They're both just there for the money.
Yeah. And Gomez kind of spirals. He's watching Sally, which I vaguely remember that talk show.
I don't. Not at all. I mean, it just to me, I was like, I didn't even realise it was a real talk show. I kind of assumed they'd just gone for like a typical American talk show where you can call in.
It was good. But, Morticia kind of goes, oh, it's when he says, but we'll miss Gilligan.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's it. Like something has to be done.
We need help. Yes.
And she drives to the mansion to confront Fester and try and resolve this.
Yeah.
And they again see the opportunity and they tie her up and they're stretching her on the torture device.
She's loving it.
She loves. And meanwhile, Thing, who had, I think, gone with her, like hitches a ride back. He's like jumping on the back of cars.
That's right.
To get back to Gomez.
Another great, because doesn't Thing get a job? Didn't he?
He did.
He went and got a job as a delivery man.
Yeah, like an office mail delivery.
Yeah. Throwing the parcels everywhere. Oh, just just honestly, all the thing montage, fantastic. Everything he did, I was just like so into. That they were probably the scenes that were the most unnecessary in the whole movie. Probably, a little bit longer than they needed to be or whatever, but they were like the comic relief in an already quite funny movie. But yeah, I love that. So yeah, we get another great thing montage of him getting back.
Yes, he gets back, he knocks on the door and he's trying to, he's like, his thing as a hand is too exhausted and frantic and he can't communicate, and Gomez is like, he's trying to sign and Gomez is like, I hate it when you stutter.
That's right.
He finally like gets it out through Morse code. What is by tapping on the table that they've got Morticia and
Morticia
Gomez.
Danger needs help, something like that. And
they're on their way, and Abigail and Tully and Gordon are threatening Morticia. They've got her tied up, and now they're talking about hot pokers, and it's when Gomez comes in, like, to save her, but also I don't think he's worried. He's actually that worried about her. Like,
yeah, or like he hasn't fully. He either hasn't fully grasped what's going on, but he kind of walks in and is just like, oh, this is just normal. Like, what are you guys doing? Having a good little afternoon over here.
But yes, they start they're fighting.
And we get the sword fight comes back.
Yes, the sword fight between him and Tully. And Tully's like taking the opportunity to properly fight back, possibly for the first time. You kind of get the sense.
I think so.
Yeah,
because he actually, like, I think he cuts Gomez at some point. He actually injures him, which obviously before, when the relationship was very different. It was, client and lawyer. He was just playing along. But yeah, you see a bit of aggression in Tully. Probably like the most, I don't know, just like spunk that we've seen in Tully this whole time. He actually fights back because he really wants his money.
And with that, we get this evolution where Abigail kind of voices those things that Tully was. Not Tully. That Gordon was feeling. She finally cracks and shows her true character to Gordon. Like, we've obviously seen it, and the audience have kind of picked up that she's a bit of a psycho and obviously very mean. And yeah, she finally kind of reveals to Gordon how she truly feels about him and how little he means to her. Yeah, and he acts hurt, but also like he's going to just follow through with the plan. He acts at first like a wounded puppy, like a dog that's been kicked but will just come back because that's what he has to do. But yeah, then you get that great little twist, and we get the book thing. Yeah, he stops Gomez from pulling the book that lets them into the vault, and he grabs a different book, which I found funny because they must all know which book does it because they've all been in there. As in, like, Abigail must know as well? Yeah, because she was pulling the chain. Yeah, but haven't they, like, they haven't discovered the vault yet, so they... No, but to get to the chain, you go through the bookcase. Yeah, right. Oh, plot holes. Oh, yeah. But maybe heightened situation. Yeah, that's right. And also, I don't know. I really liked this little part because you really get that feeling that Gordon / Fester has been thinking, like, because he could very easily just go along with Abigail and make everything happen, but he's clearly had that realization, like, no, these people are really my family. They're the ones who completely accepted me for who I was, even when I didn't fit in, even when I didn't know about the family and kept saying the wrong thing, they still accepted me. And he's kind of made this almost split decision to go no. And he's, that would have been pretty stressful for him because his mum, or like, we don't really know their relationship in great detail, but she's just basically really wounded him. Well, he grabs this book that contains a hurricane, which it was established at some point that Tully was sunning himself from a book that had... It was Gone with the Wind. He opens it at the start. I think it's either before or after the sword fight. It's right around the same time because I remember both of those things kind of come back at the same time later. Like in this scene that we're talking about. Yeah, so at the beginning he opens Gone with the Wind and it kind of blows him with like a little bit of a light breeze, and he's like, oh, lovely, and puts it away. And I just remember watching that scene at first and being like, God, that's funny, how clever, haha. But thinking it would be throwaway. Yeah. And then, of course, it comes back later. Pays off at the end. It's another wind book, but it's a lot bigger. Yeah. And so Morticia and Gomez go into the secret stairs, and Fester opens this book on the hurricane, and essentially Abigail and Tully get blown out the window, land in graves, the graves close, they fall down, and Wednesday and Pugsley have dug these holes.
Just standing there sweetly like, yay. And because you obviously didn't see them coming to the house or anything. There's no explanation for how they got there, but of course they are there and they've done the perfect thing.
Well, and also, again, Wednesday with her incredible lines, Pugsley says, "Are they dead?" And she goes, "Doesn't matter." Like, so good.
She's just a critical thinking queen.
She is. And it kind of, like, actually, this is, I guess, the twist. Although, very convenient
You mean
twist.
the coda? Like the sort of...
Well, no, Fester gets electrocuted.
That's right.
And realizes that he was Fester all along. And he had lost his memory.
Jog.
And she and Abigail had taken advantage of that and taken him on as a strong man. And so it wasn't a case of Gordon finding his place. It was a case of Fester coming home.
Finding his way home, yeah.
All along.
Which, because that all happens in like a little scene at the end.
Yeah, so he's electrocuted, and then we realise in this little scene at the end, there's a heap of exposition that explains this. But it's that things have gone back to normal. We find out that Margaret is dating Cousin It, and she's dressed up for Halloween.
That's right. I love that it ended at Halloween.
Yeah.
This is a Halloween movie. So many that start with Halloween as kind of a setting, but this is all just leading up. Halloween's just something that happens casually at the end,
Well, also she asks, because Wednesday doesn't have a costume, and she says, "What's your costume?"
My favourite line of the movie.
Do you want to say it?
She's like, "I'm a homicidal maniac. They look just like everybody else."
It's so good. And from there, like, we just get this lovely ending. Like, they're going to wake the dead, which is like a family ritual on Halloween, and
they're all just tramping through the graveyard with shovels and having a great time. Good family bonding night.
And everyone, that Fester has found his home. Everyone kind of finds their place. And interestingly, Margaret really finds a place.
Yeah, I really liked that as well, because you don't really you sort of see her having that conversation and that kind of light bulb moment with It at the party. And then you don't see her again until later. But I just loved her little storyline that she sort of realised, like, that's kind of what the Addams do. They help people realise they don't have to fit into the box that they were assigned. They can just be themselves.
Well, and at the beginning, she's very much someone who's like, we need to be like this, we need to act like this, we need to be a part of this.
Exactly, with the accent thing that you were mentioning before. She puts on this part because that's how she has to be in society, and then gradually throughout the film that's just eroded through, like, sometimes terror, but also realising that her husband's a bit of a dickhead, and she's unhappy.
Yeah.
And she meets someone.
The person who makes her happy was someone she didn't expect.
Absolutely.
Who she was scared of. Like, she, when she met Cousin It, she was kind of, oh, God, who are you?
It's like, what is this? Yeah.
We've made it to the end of this film. It is such a good film.
So beautiful. And I just love the messages that are all the way through it, that, you should just be yourself, and you should be proud of who you are.
I love that they use horror as a way of doing that, because, like, this is not a scary movie.
No,
but
it's a spooky movie, but
but they engage those things that are traditionally belong in the world of horror to kind of put forward a really lovely message. I do have to ask, do you have a campus line or moment that you want to... I think
it's hard because obviously,
the whole thing.
Extremely camp movie. There were a few things. At first, I was thinking everything about the ball, just in general, was quite camp, but also I think I just really liked that scene because all of the costumes were amazing, and the set was really beautiful. But I think I'd have to go with the original duel with the lawyer with the sword fights, but the scene, the moment where Gomez backflips like 20 times into his chair. Out of nowhere, he just like, oh, that happened. And that would probably be the campus moment for me.
Beautiful. Was there a scariest moment? I don't know if there really is.
There's not really like, there's no jump scares. They're not trying to frighten the audience. It's more like psychological scare stuff. But I almost think scariest scary moments for me were like when Wednesday was missing at first, just because like you see her being chased by the mother and Gordon, but you don't really find out what happens to her for quite a while. And like you sort of know from the tone nothing bad will have happened, but you're like, oh, I'm so attached to Wednesday. Like, hope she's okay. Hope they don't, because, you know, they catch Morticia later, but at that point you're like, maybe they've caught Wednesday. Maybe they're, you know, who knows? Yeah. So that was a little bit like, ooh.
Yeah. No, and it's like a real moment of, you know, you see these characters
and you're actually a little bit frightened
worried
for the characters. Yeah. Because up until then, they've been in control of everything. And the funny part was that they make everyone else around them uncomfortable by being in control and being themselves. But suddenly, yeah, maybe that's the scariest part, is when you're like, oh, the Addams are starting to lose their grip on the situation.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, before we wrap up, where does this film land on the camp scary scale for you?
Absolutely divine camp. Like there's no scariness at all.
There's nothing scary. It embraces horror, but it does not use horror to scare us. It is
that's right.
Complete pure camp.
It's beautiful. And you're right. Like it uses all of those elements of horror, but not in a horrifying way. You know, there's even that scene where Wednesday's walking past Morticia at a table and she's got a knife. And she goes, what's that for? And Wednesday goes, my brother or something. And she's like, give it here. And hands her like a big machete
and then
instead.
Gets her a much bigger knife.
And Wednesday just toddles off. I was just like, yep, great. Like it's a big scary weapon in a children's movie that she's handing to a child. And everyone's just like, very normal and cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I just adore this movie. It's so good. I want to say thank you for joining me, Ellen.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me chatter to you about this just ridiculously fun movie for such a long time.
Stella just got a fright. There was a motorbike was revving and she just went
spook.
So that was Stella's scariest moment. Do you have anything you want to plug while I've got you?
I mean, not really. If anyone would like to come and chatter with me about cute things like the Addams Family and feminism and stuff, my Twitter and Insta handles are both EllenFae, so ELENFAE. Come and tell me, you know, what did you do for Halloween this year?
Definitely, and I'll put a link to both your Twitter and Instagram in the show notes for anyone who wants them. So, thank you everyone for joining me today. You can follow Camp Scary and Squee on Instagram and Twitter by going to @CampScaryPod. If you have questions or suggestions, you can email campscarysquee@gmail.com. And make sure to rate and review Camp Scary and Squee so other horror fans can find us. Thank you for joining us, and remember, don't scream.
They'll hear you.